The widow of Alexei Navalny said today that she would carry on her husband's work to challenge President Vladimir Putin's autocratic rule, presenting herself for the first time as a political force and calling on his followers to rally alongside her. Mr. Navalny's sudden death in prison, which was announced by the Russian authorities on Friday, left a vacuum in a decimated Russian opposition. His supporters had wondered whether his wife, who long shunned the spotlight, might step in despite immense challenges to fill the void. And the judge who presided over a civil business fraud trial against Donald Trump on Friday ordered the former president, his sons, business associates, and company to pay more than $350 million in damages and temporarily limited their ability to do business in New York. The judge ordered the former president and the Trump organization to pay over $354 million in damages and barred Trump from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation or other legal entity in New York for a period of 3 years. And a CNN poll recently asked how motivated Americans were to vote in the election. That now Republicans who said they are eager to regain power said they were extremely motivated, whereas only 39% of Democrats said they were motivated, many of them saying that they were exhausted from the politics of the day. Broadly, surveys have shown erosion in the party standing with traditional Democratic constituencies. On the left, some groups have warned of funding challenges and voter apathy, and the most visible source of in the streets energy is progressive frustration with Biden over his support for Israel. And the International Court of Justice began hearing arguments today on the legality of Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. It is the first time the world's highest court has been asked to give an advisory opinion on the issue, which has been the subject of years of debates and resolutions at the United Nations. Now, the hearings taking place at the Peace Palace in The Hague are focusing on decades of Israeli actions in the Palestinian territories, including the West Bank and East Jerusalem. And are you in the market for new sneakers? Well, if you are, at a sneaker conference in Philadelphia over the weekend, Donald Trump unveiled his latest pitch, and it wasn't a stump speech. The businessman turned politician debuted a line of gleaming golden sneakers called the Never Surrender High Top Sneaker, which sells online for just $399 a pair. According to Trump, this is something he's been talking about for over 12 years. And in Trumpian style, he said it's going to be a big, big success. He says that's the real deal, holding up the footwear, which features an American flag on the back and a capital T, presumably for Trump, on the side. And 6 years after reforming its criminal justice system, Louisiana is no longer the nation's most incarcerated state. Thousands of nonviolent offenders have been given a second chance, and the state has saved more than $100 million. Now, this is a windfall for scores of community groups, but these reforms that have been championed by the former Democratic governor, John Edwards, that included shortened prison sentences, recalculating who was eligible for parole, and weakened drug laws, made it harder to send some folks back to prison. But in some landmark prison reform legislation may be on the rise, and this time not so favorable. The new Republican governor, Jeff Landry, has called a special session to start today to tackle what he calls violent crime and to put into place what he calls more aggressive policing and enforcement measures. And today, a pro-Trump trucker, yes, a truck driver and a right-wing influencer who goes by the handle Chicago Ray, he posted a video to X, which is formerly Twitter, claiming that he has spoken to at least 10 of the truckers who will start, I should say, refusing loads headed for New York City. Ray wants truckers to stop deliveries to the city in wake of a New York court ruling ordering the former president to pay $355 million in damages after he and the Trump organization were found liable for committing financial fraud. And of course, Donald Trump is all in favor of truckers not taking deliveries in the city of New York as a form of protest for what he calls a rigged criminal justice system. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by Dr. Michael Fontroy. He is a professor of policy and government at George Mason University. Also joining me in this hour is Alan Orr. He's the founder of Orr Immigration Law Firm. It is such a big news day today. We're going to be talking about some of those biggest stories, not only in hour one, but in hour two. Lots of news happened over the weekend. And since I haven't had a chance to weigh in on some of these huge stories, I thought I'd make hour two today also a news hour. So if you are a news junkie and if you've been wondering about some of these big weekend stories, don't despair, because in hour two today, we are going to break down those breaking and trending stories that happened over the weekend. But before I bring on my guest and we get after that news, I wanted to just tell you what's on my mind, what I'm thinking about in real time. I've been reading all of these articles. One of the big news stories that we're going to talk about today in one of these hours is that explosive hearing, Fani Willis. We finally got to see not only day one on Thursday, and we did a breakdown on day one Thursday, but day two happened on Friday. And I haven't been on the air since then. So I'm glad to have my good buddy, the lawyer, Alan Orr, with me, as well as Dr. Fontroy, because I'm sure they have lots of opinions on some of the comments that were made during the testimony on both Thursday and Friday. Particularly, I want to ask them about the comment by Nathan Wade that the only thing a woman can do for him is make him a sandwich. I'm sure both of these gentlemen today joining me have lots to say about that. And Fani Willis' statement that a man is not a plan, he is a companion. So we're going to talk about all of those things. But first, just wanted to I think level set. People started texting me like crazy on Thursday and Friday, asking me what I thought about Fani and what a major distraction this was, and shouldn't she just step down, and how horrible this is, and how she was making all the Black people look bad, all the Black women, Black lawyers, or her dad. I mean, some of these comments I got folks tweeting me and texting me and DMing me were driving me a little crazy over the weekend. And then I pick up the paper over the weekend, or I'm scrolling through the various news sites, and I'm seeing all these articles with these opinions about Fani Willis. One of them that really caught my attention, in addition to all of the DMs I got, was one of the LA Times. One of the LA Times, Los Angeles Times columnist wrote, Fani Willis's inexplicably bad judgment has endangered her case and the nation. I went, Now, somehow, this African-American district attorney in Georgia, one of the few lawyers in this entire country that had the courage to bring a lawsuit against Donald Trump, now all of a sudden, her conduct is endangering not only the case, but the nation. Yes, the nation. This woman, this columnist, and others have now put the responsibility of saving the nation on a state court, or a state elected district attorney. Now, not the Justice Department with all of its resources, not Congress, not the Senate, not the voters, but somehow Fani Willis is endangering the nation. This is complete and utter nonsense. It is gaslighting, and it is displaced rage, because all of this rage that people seem to have and that they're directing towards Fani in these opinion pieces, and I've seen experts or so-called experts online and on cable shows, you guys have the wrong folks in mind. Just like Fani Willis reminded everyone on Thursday when she took the witness stand that she's not on trial. It's Donald Trump and his co-defendants who tried to subvert our democracy. Fani Willis's personal life and who she chose to have sex with was not is not on trial, should not be on trial, and was not a violation of any Georgia statute. And if you want to be mad at someone for what you were calling a distraction, you should place the blame where the blame should be placed, and that's on Donald Trump and team. Donald Trump and team, they have a playbook, and they roll it out always, and particularly whenever they are in the hot seat. And that playbook says, do everything you can to distract, to deflect, and to delay the proceedings. And that's exactly what we saw happen in this case on Thursday and Friday. We didn't see a shred, a scintilla, that's a word we use in law school a lot, of evidence to suggest that Fonnie Willis received any financial benefit from Nathan Wade, or that Nathan Wade received any unearned or unjust benefit from working for the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. What we did see was an African-American man who took a job after a white prominent former governor, now prominent lawyer, said he wouldn't touch the case because it didn't pay enough money and he didn't want the headaches of having to have bodyguards for the rest of his life. So we saw him turn down the case. Nathan Wade, who billed a gazillion hours because the case was so intensive, so labor intensive, hours for which he did not get paid because Fonnie Willis had a cap on the number of hours that he could bill. So what we saw was a man working his butt off, putting his life at risk, sacrificing his entire firm to take this case on, who had an affair with a consenting adult and who shared the expenses that were expended for several trips that they took. That's it. That was all that we saw. We didn't see one single solitary witness that came in on behalf of the defendants who had the burden of proof to prove that somehow Fonnie Willis, cooked up this scheme to hire Nathan Wade, to give him this really exorbitant fee so he can make all this money and then funnel it back to her and take her on these elaborate trips. We didn't see that because that's not what happened. And the defendants never, ever, ever had any evidence to suggest that. Yet they filed these motions, yet they had the court take 2 days out of its precious time, cost the taxpayers, had the whole country up in arms. And somehow the fault is on Fonnie Willis? No, it's not. If anything, Fonnie Willis is a saint and should be held up as such, should be lauded and applauded, should be thanked. People should be pouring money into her campaign fund because if she does step aside, the chances of this case going forward are probably 0 to none. And by being willing to allow her personal life to be exposed in the way that she did, it pretty much, if assuming the judge does the right thing and doesn't disqualify her, it assumes that this case goes forward. Now, the opposite would be true if Fonnie Willis was not the patriotic martyr that I think she is. She could have easily said, you know what, I don't want my personal life on blast. I don't want it under a microscope. I'm going to step aside and I'm going to make Nathan Wade step aside. Then all of you people who are complaining about her would then be even more upset when the case would sit idly for months, as we suspect it would do, like another case involving a high-profile defendant in Georgia that she was disqualified on. Or, as we know, a new Republican, likely prosecutor would get assigned to the case and may decide that there's not even enough evidence in his conservative way of thinking to charge Donald Trump and defendants, and the whole case could end up dismissed. So stop all the whining and finger pointing at Fonnie Willis. She's a grown-up. She had the right to be in a relationship with whomever she chose. She did not break any laws. There was no evidence produced at this trial. She put herself at risk, put her whole life on display so that she could do her job, that which she was hired to do, which was to prosecute folks like Donald Trump and company when there is an indictment from a grand jury and when there is evidence to suggest that there is a crime for which she can get a conviction. So I say kudos to Fonnie Willis. Yes, she came in hot. She was steaming in her beautiful hot pink dress. She set the record straight. And then her father was the epitome of Black excellence in his testimony. And yeah, you may not like it and it may be a little messy, but guess what? Life is messy and there is no one messier on this planet than Donald Trump. So let's keep the blame directed where it needs to be, and that's on these defendants who tried to subvert our democracy. When we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Stay with us.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do four things: increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice. Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough, and care enough, and care enough, and care enough.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day. Breathe.
Some people just know the best places to eat around town. Those are the people who know to choose Allstate. They know exactly where to go to get exactly what you're wanting. They know where to find the spiciest hot pot, the gooeyest brownies, and the tenderest, most flavorful portobello steak. Those people also know that safe drivers save 40% with Allstate.
Saving 40% is based on the national average premium savings for all state auto customers with a clean driving record versus those without. Savings vary by state and vary based on how you buy, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook.
You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580, where climate is king. Climate is king.
If you're looking for the most epic place on earth, let's start at the base of a massive waterfall. Then trek through the thick jungle. Then climb to the peak of a snowy mountaintop. Then once you get there, keep going. Because with intelligent 4x4 and 7 drive modes and a Nissan Pathfinder, the search is the real adventure.
Available feature. Intelligent 4x4 cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions.
All right, we are back, and Alan Orr and Dr. Michael Fontroy are joining me on this Monday. And in this hour, we're going to talk about that Friday hearing involving the efforts by defendants in the Trump RICO case to disqualify District Attorney Fani Willis and her special prosecutor, Nathan Wade. And I started by saying I was so incredibly annoyed by all the op-ed pieces. One in particular, the LA Times columnist Robin Abkarian wrote, Alan, the column headline was Fani Willis's inexplicably bad judgment has endangered her case in the nation. And then the under the heading was a romantic relationship between the Fulton County, Georgia district attorney and a fellow prosecutor could change the course of American history. Her well-deserved umbrage at that point cannot hide the fact that she screwed up here, or that the entire country may end up paying for her unforgivable mistake. Now, am I missing something here? You are an attorney. I'm sure you watched every moment because you were tweeting me. What is with this woman and this language that somehow now Fani Willis is responsible for the entire direction of the country, and that her relationship with Nathan Wade has the potential of, blowing the entire country up and calling it an unforgivable mistake? What's going on, Alan?
Yeah, I think, we were on air when the story originally broke. I don't even know, a month ago, maybe. And I think part of it is just craziness, absolute craziness, nothing based in law, because one, she's able to have relationships. And two, She didn't do anything wrong. So that's just a factual matter. They've made a mountain out of a molehill. And I've actually written to see, I actually do believe sanctions should be in place here for bringing this case because there was no evidence other than supposition to ruin her career. And that's very ill pointed. And you can even see if you watch during the testimony how they tried to bring out embarrassing facts about her finances and her father's finances. It was never, ever about an affair or improper stuff. She was nowhere clear to it. And I'm glad she showed up the way she did. I would have showed up hard. And someone would have accused me of being something that I'm not. So I think all of it is misstated. And there were a ton of articles, and I responded to as many as possible. She should step aside. She should do this. She should do that. Well, guess what? You're not her. And all of you white people out there trying to assess what a black woman should do when you weren't brave enough to bring the case in the first place. You didn't have to move out of your home. Your father's life wasn't in danger. Your children's life wasn't in danger. You don't have 24-hour guards around you. You should just shut up.
Yeah, Michael, again, the headline of this article, they're placing the like the entire all this wrong with the United States right now on the back of this one woman. Literally, that her conduct could change the course of American history. Are they not watching the news? Are they not watching all the other cases going forward against Donald Trump? Do they not know that on March 25th, he's going to be tried for a felony in Manhattan, that there's another felony case waiting for him in a federal court in Manhattan after that March state court moves forward? And how dare someone say that her actions are so unforgivable that they can change the course of the history of this country? I'm just overwhelmed by it. I can't, it's too much.
So I think we can agree that the language is overheated, right? I just think it goes where it doesn't, and it misses some of the nuance and some of the context that you all rightly bring out from a legal perspective. I was fascinated by the portions of the hearing that I watched for a growing number of reasons, one of which is I just found out that Fonnie Willis's dad and I are fraternity brothers, and that Fonnie Willis grew up less than a half mile of where I am right now, and that she went to elementary school 2 blocks from my house, and that she was in undergrad school at Howard when I was in graduate school in the same department. So there were a whole bunch of reasons for me to pay attention to this. Most importantly,
so you're a Kappa man, is what you're telling us, right? Because that's what Dad told us.
I mean, I have to tell the truth. Yes, I am. But here's the more important piece for me. I am married to a Black woman who's a lawyer, and I'm always fascinated to hear her talk about some of the double standards she faces. She's an executive and a high-ranking executive in a major media company, and I'm always taking her temperature on some of this kind of stuff. And she rightly sort of honed in on the main point here, and that is, from a legal perspective, what's the connection, right? And you all have hit on that too, that legally, while it may look messy, there's actually nothing legally wrong with it that would stop this case. But I'm a political scientist, I'm a political analyst, and I understand that this is not about legality. It's about the court of public opinion and trying to stain her and hopefully get her off the case. Because if you get her off the case, as you rightly point out, this may never see the light of day, depending on who's brought in to succeed her. And so I think there is a circumstance in which multiple things can be true at the same time. And that worries me, because while we all think there's no smoke here, we can't be certain that the judge is going to agree. And if it turns out that the judge doesn't agree, then we got a real problem, because this dude is going to skate on something that seems to me to be open and shut from obviously an amateur perspective. So while I agree with what you all are saying, I'm also really worried because we don't yet have a final decision from the judge. I think in the end, she's going to take a reputational hit, but she'll be able to continue in the case. But I can't be 100% certain of that until we actually get a decision.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that because, yes, the judge could, as you're right, 100% the judge, it's his discretionary decision. He could decide. But I think we also have to think about the broader context. If he is, and now I'm dying to get your opinion on this, if the judge decides to disqualify, it will have to be, I would presume, or my presumption is that because he's made a factual determination that she's not credible. So you've determined that the district attorney elected for Fulton County has lied about presumably when the relationship started. Perhaps she lied about having 6 months or whatever amount of cash she said she had, and that she paid Nathan Wade for these trips so that he was not gifting her anything. But that would have far-reaching consequences. So if the judge makes the determination that this sitting district attorney came into a courtroom and was not honest, or that the special prosecutor filed an affidavit that was not honest, it's so much bigger than just disqualifying her for this case. And you got to believe that every defendant that has been charged by Fani Willis is going to be running into court trying to get those cases reviewed, looked at. Yes, the State Bar of Georgia is going to be looking at her. Criminal. Let's not underestimate that, because they already start talking about something called honest service fraud. So you hire someone to get government funding, and then you get the government funding and gets funneled back to you to reach a benefit. So this isn't just about disqualifying her. And I don't know if the judge, when we come forward, I want to get your opinion on this, Alan. Do you see a scenario under which the judge could make a ruling that's so narrow that it doesn't trigger all of these other, domino effects, consequences that I see as potential huge issues way beyond what happens on this one case? Because you can't lie, period. No one can. And you definitely cannot be found to be less than credible as a district attorney on a case or any case. So when we come forward, I want to continue talking about what disqualification could mean. I want to talk about that girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, disgruntled employee, what you thought about her testimony, and then the testimony from Fani Willis's father about the threats. What do we do with that? Because it kind of got glossed over, and the defendants didn't want to deal with that. In fact, they didn't even want the dad talking about that. But I think that's also very important. And you mentioned her reputation, Professor. I have a different take on what happens to her reputation after this. But we're going to continue, do a deep dive on that second day in the Fani Willis disqualification hearing that happened live television for millions of people to see on Friday. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
More of Areva Martin when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Officials at St. Augustine's University in Raleigh, North Carolina are holding a news conference to talk about the HBCU's potential loss of its accreditation. This comes after it was placed on probation back in December, and the IRS filed a $7.9 million tax lien against the university last week for unpaid taxes dating back to 2020. At the news conference, administrators say they will outline a strategy to, quote, stabilize the institution and ensure a sustainable future. Maryland Governor Wes Moore is joining local prosecutors for a panel discussion on juvenile justice issues. The event will be broadcast live tonight at 7 p.m. on foxbaltimore.com, Fox 45's YouTube page, and baltimoresun.com. Joining the Black governor for the discussion will be Baltimore City State's Attorney and Prince George County State's Attorney. Conservative commentator Armstrong Williams, who is part owner of the Baltimore Sun, will moderate the panel. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Over in Pacoima, watch for a crash currently on the on-ramp from San Fernando Road over on the 118 East, and watch for slowing coming from the 5 Laurel Canyon Boulevard interchange. Castaic still has an accident on the right shoulder, the 5 North before Templin Highway, and watch for heavy traffic from Lake Hughes Road. Drive carefully on the Cahuenga Passes 101 South before Lancashire Boulevard, as 2 middle lanes are currently blocked and heavy traffic is coming from Laurel Canyon Boulevard. And in San Clemente, a 3-vehicle accident is seen on the right shoulder to the on-ramp from Camino de Estrella on the 5 North.
Wendy's breakfast, 2 for $3 Biggie Bundles lets you choose your perfect duo from your fave 4, like a sausage or egg and cheese biscuit, small seasoned potatoes, or medium hot coffee. Limited time only during breakfast hours. U.S. price and participation may vary. Not valid in the combo. Single item at regular price.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
USC's women's basketball team moved up 3 spots to number 7 in this week's AP Top 25 rankings. USC is 20-4 with a 6-game winning streak. Trojans freshman Juju Watkins remains the nation's number 2 scorer. She's averaging 27.5. Next game for USC is Friday night at home against number 11 Colorado. The Lakers and Clippers begin the second half of the season Thursday night on the road. The Lakers are at Golden State, the Clippers at Oklahoma City. Today's Black History Month sports moment: on January 29, 1995, Deion Sanders was the starting cornerback for the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 29 against the Chargers. Deion became the first and only athlete to play in a Super Bowl and a World Series. In 1992, Deion was the left fielder for the Atlanta Braves when the Braves played the Toronto Blue Jays in the World Series. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen, plus a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, in 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA CAN believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back, and in this first hour, we're talking about some of the biggest news of last week and over the weekend. And that news is including the Fani Willis testimony that happened on Thursday, and then the second day of that testimony in the Fulton County Courthouse, where defendants, including those representing Donald Trump and others, charged with RICO for trying to overthrow a legitimate election of Joe Biden in 2020. The defendants filed motions saying that they had evidence that Fani Willis had engaged in what they called an illicit personal or intimate relationship with the special prosecutor she hired, Nathan Wade, and that she received some kind of financial benefits as a result of that relationship. They spent all day on Thursday trying to establish through Nathan Wade that he had lied in his affidavit as to when their relationship began. Also, that he wasn't truthful about who paid for several trips that they took together while dating. And then also on Thursday, there was the testimony of a disgruntled employee who said she had evidence and knew with certainty that the relationship started in 2019 rather than 2022, which was the testimony of Nathan Wade and Fani Willis. And then Fani Willis, whose lawyers who were trying to argue to quash her subpoena, stormed into the courtroom and said she wanted to tell her story. She wanted to take the witness stand, and she did so for several hours, being cross-examined by Trump's attorneys, as well as the other defendants' attorneys. And Friday rolls around and Fani said, I had enough. I've told all my story. I'm not coming back. People expected her to come back on Friday. She did not. And they spent the day fighting over attorney-client privilege with the former divorce attorney for Nathan Wade, as well as Fani Willis's dad took the witness stand. So a lot to unpack with this case, Alan. A lot of folks we're talking about on social media, online, writing articles and post on social media that she should have stepped down, that she, as this LA Times columnist has said, she's engaged in an unforgivable mistake and her actions are going to change the course of American history. All of this hyperbole. But break down for us, Alan, what the implications are if this judge determines that Fani should be disqualified.
Right. Well, first, let's start with the legal precept. I mean, it is a Republican appointed judge, but I think we need to go back to the world where we didn't care who was appointed by the judge because we thought about justice in the first place. And that judge has to make a finding based on the record and based on the burdens. And it wasn't Fani's burden to prove anything or to defend anything. That it was actually those defense attorneys who need to put forward a case and evidence. And they had two people, one who was a fired employee and the other one was a removed partner from the firm who really didn't have much to say, that was questioning about the data relationship started, right? And during the course of that whole testimony, they found out that Fani wasn't walking around telling her business, right? And she doesn't seem like someone who would be like, oh, here's a ring, here's whatever. And so the only way it works is if they met and fell in love on day one, and no relationship works that way. So it has to be defined in that manner. So that's the high burden. And then she didn't have to take the stand because I think the judge was going to dismiss the case outright if she didn't take the stand anyway. But she walked in and she did something that I say in the court of law. She had the veracity to come in and say, listen, no, I will answer every one of your questions. And in the course of answering this question, she said, listen, you want to get to the salacious part? Let's get to the salacious part. Ask me those questions. Here, I'm here for it, right? And she hit it head on, everything she could, being discreet and discretion and just loud and proud as she could be to say, how dare you say these things about me, right? So based on that alone, I don't think the attorney could do that. But if the judge decided, for whatever reason, that one of the other witnesses had some veracity that they just could not tell, or the fact that she didn't have this cash that her father had or said that she had, and no one proved otherwise, right? There's no evidence otherwise. And honestly, when we think about this, all of this enrichment that she was supposed to have, God, please explain to me, it's a couple of $1,000s, right? At the most, a couple of $1,000s. Not enough to have a case. Then everything she does comes under discretion. And if people understand that, watch Law and Order, right? It's the key place where you can always see where they say if they get someone from the district attorney's office, the next day, everyone's in there trying to overturn a case. And it questions the justice of that person because the veracity of that officer falls under that is. And we know what cases are before her, right? She's not always been a fan. She's got those teachers. She's got those rappers still ongoing, right? Fani has a big caseload that she's been sort of managing for a long time. And she has re-election coming up. So that judge would be inputting themselves in the middle of a political arena that I just don't think he's going to do, because everything I saw about that judge, he was fair, he was clear, and he shut down all the craziness in his courtroom instantly.
Yeah, and I don't think people are thinking about that, Michael, when they think about this case, because as Alan said, and I've been saying all along, you can't, some lawyers says, well, he can get to a decision to disqualify her without making a finding that she's not credible. And I just don't see how that's possible, because she has testified to when the relationship started, how she paid for these trips. So if the judge is discounting that testimony, it's got to be because he believes that she wasn't credible. Now, there's no contrary testimony, as Alan said, about the trips in particular. There is the disgruntled employee who testified about what she believes to be the start date of the relationship. And it is different. It's 2 years different than what Fonnie and Nathan Wade testified to. So the judge has got to weigh the credibility and the motive of a disgruntled employee versus a district attorney whose bar license is at stake, whose election is at stake, another barred attorney, Nathan Wade, whose bar license is at stake. And we heard the lawyers really go after Nathan, called him a liar, said he filed a false affidavit. Did you see anything, Michael, that you thought had racial undertones? Now, clearly everything is racial, right? But some folks were talking about the way the lawyers treated Fonnie and Nathan Wade. They didn't think that would have been the same had they been white lawyers, white elected officials. I don't know. What did you see?
Look how they treated the former governor. Oh my God. It was in the
God.
courtroom.
Well, they treated him like he was short of Jesus.
I just listen, if Fonnie Willis were white, we probably wouldn't even be here. Right. So I think the Trump team is clearly desperate, clearly trying to find anything that can stick to the wall. And so you have to factor that in with the whole clear racial dimensions to all of this. They're a desperate group. And, now I will also say this is perhaps an insight on how they treat less famous, less well spoken, and less well prepared people that they examine and cross-examine. And so, at some level, it's an insight on how they view Black people. But I think it's an amalgam of things, not just race. But look, they're trying to keep their guy out of jail.
Oh, no doubt about it. The stakes could not be higher. But I was really touched by Fonnie Willis's dad. His story about why, as a Black man, he taught his daughter to keep cash. How did that story strike you out? I mean, that just touched me to my core.
Right. Well, I mean, he's the worst for them. He was the most credible witness of all witnesses to sort of roll in and have this conversation. They tried to mix him up on dates and tried to pull him into when he was voting, but he had a story for everything. And he was an international lawyer. So he had befuddled them before they even started because he knew what he was doing and he was well skilled and well crafted and landed appropriately. And to your earlier question, the other thing we should realize is that Fannie said on the question, don't yell at me. Don't shout at me. We're not doing that. She checked them in all those moments, which I think is appropriate. It is, I mean, for everything that has been said about Fannie, I think she becomes the beat of Atlanta for Black women empowerment, for Black women standing up for themselves, and for being clear, because you saw all those white men and even that white woman come at her. And she said, how dare you tell these salacious stories about me? When in fact, we know that some of those defense attorneys are married. And what's their story?
Yeah, that's what I want to say, Michael, to your point about her reputation. I don't think she takes a reputational hit. I think she gets held up as an example of what we have to go through and how difficult it is when we take on these roles, the standards. And one of the things that really irritated me, not about some of these white opinion writers, but it was African-American people. In fact, some people close to me, like a cousin, who sent me a text who wanted me to get me to go down this road of critiquing her. And she went on about, we have to be better and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know what? I'm sick of that. Yes, our generation was taught that, but I don't want my kids to have to carry that burden. Is there ever going to be a time, Michael, in this world where we can tell our kids, be whoever it is you want to be, and we stop heaping on them this extra burden of being better than? And one of the things, and I want you to answer that, but I thought about what Fonnie said. It was COVID. She was isolated. This was the worst time of her life. How many people do we know were hooking up during COVID? The woman can't go out because people are literally calling her the B, the N, spray painting her house, threatening her life. So she can't go anywhere. She has no opportunity to have a relationship because what man wants to step into all of that? The governor who, if anybody you would think would want to do it, he surely didn't want to do it. So I think we've got to think about this in a little different way about what are we asking people to do when they run for office? I mean, beyond the burden of being Black and having to be 100% better, now we're asking this woman to do something that 99.9% of us didn't do during the pandemic of a lifetime. I want to get your response to that, Michael, because I thought that was really important that she laid out for us how difficult that pandemic year was for her. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
City of Los Angeles tenants know these facts about eviction and consumer debt. Tenants can't be evicted if rental arrears are eligible to be treated as consumer debt. Tenants who followed certain COVID-19 pandemic protections under state law can't be evicted for past due rent. Landlords can collect rental arrears in court as consumer debt, but tenants cannot be evicted if they provided a declaration of COVID-19 hardship and paid 25% of rent owed. Learn more at housing.lacity.org. Be informed, be protected, be at home. Tips to help improve your credit score in 2024. Establishing credit is an important key to achieving financial health, but building a credit history from scratch can feel challenging since you need credit to build credit. First, what does it mean to build credit? All consumers have a score between 300 and 850. You want your score to be as high as possible as lenders look at your credit score to make loan and credit decisions. A good credit score shows you have a track record of borrowing money responsibly. Remember, it's never too late to build or rebuild your credit. This segment is sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Environmental justice is racial justice. This is KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Stay Housed LA has the resources you need to know your rights and the legal support to back them up. The COVID-19 pandemic has cost people their jobs and livelihoods. This has left an estimated 1/3 of households not being able to make rent and facing losing their homes. This is a fear no one in our community should have to face. You have rights, though, and Stay Housed LA is here to help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Los Angeles, and local community and legal service providers. Together, they provide tenants with the information and support needed to exercise their rights so they can remain safely in their homes. Find out more about your rights by participating in a virtual tenant workshop. Get the legal assistance you need. Find additional resources in Los Angeles County and the City of Los Angeles. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA County for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. Stay connected to Stay Housed LA for updates. This and more at stayhousedla.org. That's stayhousedla.org. Or call their hotline at 213-694-0040. We've got your Black with a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back and we're talking about that pretty explosive two-day hearing involving Fani Willis and the efforts by Trump's lawyers and team to disqualify her. So, Michael, I want to talk about this burden that Black folks have. We heard Fani Willis say the reason he kept cash and taught his daughter to keep cash is because of racism he experienced when he was a fellow at Harvard University in Cambridge, Mass, because a restaurant wouldn't take his American Express. They wouldn't take his Visa. They wouldn't even take his traveler's checks. So he realized as a Black man, you better have cash or you could find yourself literally being arrested or being in a very difficult situation. And then this notion of amongst Black folks that Fani has let us down because as Black people, we've got to be better. Do we ever get to a point in this country where we are not imposing on ourselves or allowing the dominant culture to impose these standards on us that aren't imposed on anyone else?
So with regard to your first point, I just want to say her testimony around all of that was particularly poignant for me. I'm sure that many people listening and watching us right now have gone through the effects of family members after they transition and find that coffee can with $1,000 in cash in it, or find some money in a shoebox under the bed, or something along those lines. I know I've done that. You know, my wife and I joke about some family members on her side of the family have done the same. We all get that, particularly Black people of a certain age, right? So it makes perfect sense to me. I get it, and that never was a question for me. And I will also say, you know, she revealed a real conundrum that a lot of people face. She confessed some real vulnerability at the same time she's trying to be strong, not just for herself, but for her family, and to not be too dramatic. But you know, at some level, this is also about making your ancestors proud. You know, and she revealed herself in a way that I thought was really impressive. And you know, while I had far fewer questions on the other side of her testimony than I had going in. And I'm really happy about that, because sometimes in a rush to judgment, we have to take care to not sort of make decisions without hearing all of the evidence, so to speak. So I think I thought she did great in that regard. And to your second question about whether or not we'll ever get to that point, no, Areva, we won't. I mean, truth be told, you know, this is a real issue that I'm personally dealing with, because my wife and I have 16-year-old twins, and we're trying to guide them and get them ready to go off to college. And you know, it's very possible that they'll be at a PWI, and they need to know that there is some level of competition that you're going to have to be able to rise up to, and while at the same time knowing that there are people who are going to be in your classes, perhaps even professors, who are going to make certain judgments about you based on how you look. That is not where we should be. We should be beyond that. But the reality is, at least from my perspective, we aren't. And so we gotta continue to encourage, you know, live your best life, chase your dreams, but do so with your eyes open.
And I get that, but I guess what I'm saying, does this give us an opportunity internally as Black folks who have a conversation about allowing that internalized, you know, some of this is internalized anti-Blackness that we all have internalized, because it's been, you know, beat into us as well. Can we ever say, that's why I pushed back so hard on my cousin and others? No, I am not going to sit here and call this a unforgivable mistake, or say, oh, she knew she's Black, blah, blah, blah. Maybe, you know, I've been taught that like the rest of us, but I just want us internally maybe take a break and say, okay, you know, we get to be people too. She has done already the unthinkable. She has put her whole life at stake, literally her physical well-being, to prosecute Donald Trump. We know that is the reality. So do we also now have to heap on her these other superhuman standards? I guess that's what was irritating me so much about this, Alan.
Yeah,
I think it's true. I mean, it's the Obama complex, right? You have 8 years, you have to be the perfect president. The only thing you can do is wear a brown suit and sort of walk away from it. I think Michelle Obama embodies this conversation in her books so much about raising her children and people calling her apes and people trying to kill her kids and all that. How long, and this whole go high when they go low sort of phenomenon, I think it works for some people. But I think in some cases you meet people where they are, and you bless them for that challenge. And I really forgive her in every way. You know, people, you know, that's one of the weird things that came to me, because, you know, she went to Howard undergrad, but she went to Emory Law School. And so they were saying, she shouldn't talk like that. She should, where are we policing people?
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, wait. People were blowing me up. But why did she have to say she drinks Grey Goose? God damn it, because she drinks it. I'm sorry. like crazy.
Exactly. She doesn't have to put
I'm gonna hang out with you, because I think I might get some Grey Goose messing around with you.
Drink Grey Goose. I don't drink.
Right? That policing.
I like Nathan. I like wine. Remember, she said, "Oh, he likes that wine."
Yeah, exactly.
That little kitty drink. That's who I am. But it was so like, yes, Alan, like, really?
Quit policing people, because she then came through with the exact same things that I think Black women should have heard. You don't need a man. A man is not a plan, right? You got to have your own money. You got to pay your own way. And in my relationship, he had
I want
problems
that
with me
t-shirt.
paying my own way, right? And she said, listen, we were fighting about that. He's trying to tell me where I can be and who I can be. That's old stuff. I'm not. So I think that people need to have that reality of saying, no, meet people where they are. Show up as your full self and do a good job. Let me tell you what she has done for Atlanta, a good job against everybody. Those were Black teachers. There were Black people boycotting her one time. Rappers are boycotting her today, right? All those things are meaning in space. Let's talk about Nathan Wade's problem. Nathan Wade kicked those lawyers behind up and down that courtroom. That was his problem.
Four plea deals. So they're trying to smear his name. He didn't have, experience. He wasn't this, he wasn't that. First of all, the man was a former judge.
Exactly.
And if you were white, that would be all, right? That would be just check that box and that's it. They have been doing such a phenomenal job. They've won all the motions to dismiss, all the motions to transfer the case from state court to federal court. So nobody's talking about all of the great work they've done. Right. And these defendants know they are formidable. They are formidable opponents. Right. And Nathan Wade is working a gazillion hours for which he is not getting paid. And anybody out there that thinks $250 an hour is a lot of money, it is nothing. We paid paralegals in California $250 an hour. They've never stepped a foot in a law school. That's legal fees for cases like this could be $2,000 an hour. We're out of time in this hour, but you both are sticking around because we got more to talk about. This got us all riled up. So when we come forward, more of today's breaking and trending news, more on our assessment of all that Black culture on display in the Fonnie Willis disqualification hearing. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.